Good evening. Welcome to Conserving Carolina's first ever virtual conservation celebration. I'm Executive Director Kieran Rowe. This event is dedicated to a very special person, Mr. John Humphrey. John was an early leader and founder of an organization called Carolina Mountain Land Conservancy, and he was the first donor of a conservation easement to CMLC. John, just a month or two ago, turned 104 years old. So we're thinking of John and appreciate him as we go through the rest of this evening's program. For those of you who have attended the conservation celebration in years past, this one will be very different. I wish we could gather together in person, but I'm very excited to share with you for the next hour an exciting lineup of inspirational stories, music by the Jason DeCristofaro Band, project updates, and a special message from our keynote speakers, Audrey and Frank Peterman. Throughout the evening, you will have the opportunity to support conservation by donating by a text message according to the number listed here on the screen. We would like to acknowledge that the projects featured in this event are held on the traditional lands of the Cherokee people, the Yuchi people, and the Catawba people. Conserving Carolina pays respect to our elders, both past and present. Our first two videos feature our work with the next generation of conservation leaders. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the next hour as Conserving Carolina shares these amazing stories.
The summit of Bearwalla Mountain is protected forever by Conserving Carolina. It features a hiking trail and panoramic views in almost every direction. Kids from local schools get to experience the mountaintop through field trips that Conserving Carolina supports. They get to hike, play, and discover what an amazing part of the world we live in. In the last year, Conserving Carolina supported field trips like this one by Fernleaf Community Charter School and others by Edneyville Elementary School and Lake Lure Classical Academy. Students with disabilities can reach the mountaintop by way of the access road, so nobody is left out. We hope these experiences spark a sense of wonder, a connection to the land, and a conservation ethic in upcoming generations.
My name is Alexa Perez-Sanchez. I am an AmeriCorps alumna, and I served for 2 terms these past 2 summers with Conserving Carolina. My summer of service program that I was a part of, we were in charge of helping out a lot of the Project Conserve AmeriCorps members. What we did was a lot of trail and wildlife restoration. We did a lot of maintenance out on those trails. We did a lot of invasive species control. There was definitely a lot of multiflora rose, tree of heaven, kudzu, just endless amounts of kudzu, and a lot of poison ivy. God, so much poison ivy. Unfortunately, when I was younger, I couldn't really do a lot of hiking. My mom really never knew where to take us or what was a hiking trail and what wasn't a hiking trail. And there wasn't a lot of signage in Spanish, unfortunately, so we were definitely limited. But I did notice that with serving with Conserving Carolina, the idea of making that shift to any trail being available to anybody became an idea that was going to happen. It wasn't just something that everybody kept saying, it'll get there. So that definitely changed my view on the whole, I have to separate my culture from this nature. It almost meshed into one thanks to Conserving Carolina.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is good to have you here. I'm Lynn Killian, the Development Director for Conserving Carolina. And it is my job and also my great pleasure to remind you that our virtual event tonight is a fundraiser. We are so delighted to have everybody in attendance at no charge, but if you are at all willing and able to make a donation to support the work of conservation in our area, I invite you, I beg you, and I implore you to do so. You can make a donation by texting right now. That number is on the screen. You can also go to our website after the event and donate online. And we also always take checks through the mail addressed to our Case Street office. You might put in the little memo, Conservation Celebration, so that we know that you were here with us tonight. Thank you so much for considering a gift to Conserving Carolina. I want to remind you also of our auction. It is live now, and it will be live through August 30. The auction has so many wonderful items, gift ideas, and really unique experiences that you can enjoy for yourself. All the proceeds benefit the work of Conserving Carolina. Speaking of our work, I would like to welcome our Executive Director, Kieran Rowe, who will tell us a little bit about what is going on at Conserving Carolina.
I hope you enjoyed those videos about our work to instill appreciation for nature and the outdoors within our upcoming generations. 2020 has definitely been a year unlike any other. Nearly everyone in our local communities across the country and around the world has seen their lives and their normal routines impacted. I hope that all of you, the members and friends of Conserving Carolina, have remained safe and healthy, and that you and yours have been adapting well to the challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic and its wide-ranging effects have presented. Like so many businesses and organizations, Conserving Carolina has had to make adjustments. Since mid-March, our staff has primarily been working remotely from our homes. We've discontinued most in-person meetings and gatherings. Our board, committees, and staff teams have gotten really good at using remote meeting tools like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. For the first time since we began it in 2001, our big annual late summer fundraiser, the Conservation Celebration, will not happen as the big, joyful in-person gathering that so many of you have enjoyed attending with us over the years. Thank you for joining this year's celebration, adapted for 2020 in this new way. The annual celebration as we came to know it has not just been a great occasion for our supporters to connect with each other and get inspired by the work of our organization in beautiful settings every year, but it has also been a very important source of annual income to sustain our work. Your generous support of Conserving Carolina this year is more important than ever. Thank you in advance for your generosity and your financial contributions. But while the pandemic has brought some unexpected changes to how we work, I'm grateful to say that it hasn't stopped us from continuing to accomplish many exciting land protection, habitat restoration, and parks, trails, and greenway projects. As you'll hear more about shortly, in the past year, we have acquired land and conservation easements that will permanently add to the protection of treasured local places like DuPont State Recreational Forest, Green River Game Lands, and the Mountain Bogs National Wildlife Refuge. We've worked with partners to restore streams, wetlands, and natural communities in the Upper French Broad River watershed. We've helped create new parks in Columbus and new trails near Lake Lure, and we are close to completing the acquisition of the inactive 18-mile rail corridor between Hendersonville and Brevard that will enable the development of the Acosta Trail Greenway. With the support and cooperation of many local partners, we expect that in coming years this rail trail will become a centerpiece of our local communities, both an accessible, health-promoting recreational amenity for local residents and a major new attraction for visitors that will expand our region's hospitality and outdoor recreation economies. In the past year, we have also adopted a new strategic plan that, while keeping land and water conservation at the center of our mission, also sets new goals to expand education and engagement, to respond to climate change, and to promote equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'm sure you'll enjoy some of the videos that follow, including by our keynote speakers, Audrey and Frank Peterman, about the importance of making the outdoors welcoming to everyone. Up next, Conserving Carolina Land Protection Director Tom Fonslow will share details about our most recently completed project to add substantial acreage to one of our region's most prized public lands.
For years, two competing opportunities lay waiting in the form of 700 acres located due south of DuPont State Recreational Forest. The acreage could be transformed into an exclusive gated community offering a quick pedal or hike to over 80 miles of recreational hiking and riding trails, and featuring home sites with long-range views or fronting rushing trout streams. Concerned neighbors beckoned the Conservancy to protect the land. The neighbors had partnered with the Conservancy to protect large swaths of land ringing the 700 acres. Protection of the 700 acres would greatly enlarge the existing conservation corridor the Conservancy and the Nature Conservancy had assembled to the east, and with the support of the state of North Carolina, DuPont State Recreational Forest could be extended to the South Carolina state line. In July 2020, we completed the second phase of acquisition of the Continental Divide Tract, adding a grand total of 717 acres of new public land to DuPont. On this map, you can see that tract in bright yellow. That land is now part of DuPont State Recreational Forest. To the south lies nearby Jones Gap State Park in South Carolina. The tract also adjoins three large protected properties, including the Green River Preserve and also the Terra Nova Conference Center, both of which Conserving Carolina helped protect. From there, it's one protected public land after another: Jones Gap State Park, Caesars Head State Park, Mountain Bridge Wilderness Area, Headwater State Forest, the Greenville Watershed, Jocassee Gorges, and Gorges State Park. This chain of public lands goes on and on all the way to Sumter and Nantahala National Forests. Right now, there is no trail access through the Continental Divide Tract. Ultimately, our goal is to work with the North Carolina Forest Service to develop new trails that will connect to the 77-mile Foothills Trail in South Carolina. In theory, if we are successful, a hiker could begin in DuPont, hike south to connect to the Foothills Trail, take that to the Appalachian Trail, and hike all the way to Mount Katahdin in Maine. While this trail connection is still a goal for the future, the Continental Divide Tract provides some important benefits right now. We call it the Continental Divide Tract because a large section of the boundary is formed by the Eastern Continental Divide, which separates the waters that flow to the Gulf of Mexico from those that flow to the eastern seaboard. Acquisition of the Continental Divide Tract secured the last unprotected sources of the Green River, whose waters ultimately flow to the Atlantic Ocean, and also saved numerous headwater streams at the periphery of the Tennessee Valley, whose waters flow to the Gulf of Mexico. The tract expands a major migration corridor for wildlife. This unbroken corridor is especially important in times of climate change because both plants and animals may need to shift their range to adapt to a warming climate. Protecting this land along the Blue Ridge Escarpment helps us protect some of the richest biodiversity in the United States. Helping DuPont State Recreational Forest to expand is especially meaningful to us. Conserving Carolina cut its conservation teeth by helping found the state forest in 1996. Since then, we've added other tracts to the state forest and helped private landowners conserve their lands ringing the forest. The Conservancy has been partnering with landowners for over 30 years to stitch together the conservation quilt, and it's amazing to see it finally come together.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Barnes, and I'm the president of the Board of Directors of Conserving Carolina. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope you've been enjoying our virtual conservation celebration. I want to extend a very special thank you to everyone who has made this event possible. Thank you to the generous individual sponsors and to our premier business sponsors, Hunter Subaru and Beverly Hanks, for making this event possible. Thank you to our loyal guardians of the green business sponsors. Thank you to the Conservation Celebration Task Force Planning Committee for all their hard work putting this event together. And most importantly, to the many supporters like you who make this important work possible. Thank you from Conserving Carolina. And now, I hope you will enjoy hearing about another very special conservation project that was made possible thanks to supporters like you.
Long ago, there were giant fish that naturally occurred in the French Broad River, called muskellunge, or muskie for short. Between the 1930s and 50s, the river was heavily polluted, and as a result, the muskie were thought to have completely disappeared from the region. Thankfully today, the river is much cleaner, and the muskie has returned thanks to the stocking efforts by the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. The commission has to stock the muskie each year because they are not successfully reproducing on their own. We think that their inability to reproduce has to do with the way the river and surrounding floodplains have changed over the years. Hundreds of years ago, the river used to flood over the land and flow into pools and wetlands. Old river channels and backwater areas used to exist off of the main channel. Muskie would use these areas of shallow, slow-moving water called sloughs to rest and spawn. These areas were just extremely important for their survival. But today, most of the land along the river has been altered. It's been bermed, drained, and ditched to accommodate agriculture and development. The slough habitat that is so important for the muskie and many other aquatic species is almost non-existent. But we are working to bring back some of that lost habitat. Conserving Carolina has been working with many partners to restore the natural floodplain on a 100-acre property at the mouth of Mud Creek in Fletcher. This summer, we completed construction of 3 backwater sloughs and several wetland features. We broke berms along the river that prevented it from overflowing its banks. We also planted thousands of plants, trees, and shrubs to reforest the wetlands, floodplains, and riverbanks. We also created essential pollinator habitat. We're really excited about the potential, not just to bring back the muskie, but to support all kinds of plant and animal species. You see, we believe that by focusing our restoration on the natural ecological processes that used to exist, like reconnecting the river to its floodplain, then we will in turn have a project that will support all of the native plants and animals that depend on that natural process. Since the restoration, we have seen more animals occupying and using the land. We have seen many species of fish, toads, salamanders, turtles, crayfish, birds like waterfowl, owls, songbirds, insects, bees and butterflies, and also many mammals like bats, coyotes, bear, fox, deer, and otters, just to name a few. Apparently, if you build it, they really will come. Mud Creek is a place for people too. There's already a river access point and paddle trail campsite, and we're planning to have walking trails and a connection to the Ocklawaha Greenway in the future. As you know, we've been seeing some heavy rain and floods in recent years. With climate change, weather events are likely to get more intense and frequent. But restoring natural floodplains as we have can go a long way to mitigate and adapt to the effects that we are seeing from climate change. By revegetating the site and creating and enhancing wetlands, we are doing our part to sequester or trap carbon dioxide. By reconnecting the river to its floodplain, we are giving floodwaters a place to go during those large rain events. Rather than rushing downstream to flood other developed areas, the water can slowly percolate into the ground. At Mud Creek, we're leaving the land better than we found it. We are restoring something that was lost, and we're already seeing such amazing results. It's such a promising model that we're doing this at more sites along the French Broad and its tributaries. We recently completed a wetland restoration at Carolina Memorial Sanctuary in Mills River. We've restored a section of the East Fork of the French Broad in Transylvania County, and we're planning even more floodplain restorations at Pleasant Grove in Etowah, the new French Broad River Park in Brevard, and at a site we are working to acquire in Mills River. So thank you all so much for helping us with all of these projects and to bring back the French Broad River.
I am so proud, and I'm sure you are too, of the many accomplishments of Conserving Carolina. For example, who ever thought we would see the return of muskies to the French Broad River? I want to take a moment to remind you about our auction that is live now at www.celebration20.givesmart.com. The auction is live for bidding until midnight, August 30th, so there is plenty of time to participate after our virtual event is over. I thought you might like to hear details about a few of the exciting auction items available for bid. The first item we want to share with you is a house concert with the Will and Denny McIntyre and Darren and Jennifer Nicholson. This is your chance to have a member of the popular band Balsam Range play a private concert at your home. Darren Nicholson is the award-winning mandolin player for Balsam Range. His wife Jennifer is a gifted singer who teaches in Buncombe County. The Nicholsons were featured in an episode of Pandemic Arts produced by Will and Denny in the spring and summer of 2020. The concert will last an hour and a half and will be at a mutually agreed place and time. Will and Denny are filmmakers and musicians who have also toured internationally with four-time Grammy winner David Holt. If you win this auction item, Will and Denny McIntyre and Darren and Jennifer Nicholson will perform a house or porch concert for you and your friends. This opportunity must be used before December 2021. The next auction package is a 2-night stay at Charles Kuralt's Special Hideaway. This is a priceless experience unavailable to the public. Anvil Rock Cottage is a very rustic but wonderful cabin on Grandfather Mountain. The cabin, built about 1949, features a rough-hewn wood ceiling, flagstone floor, and a view of Linville Peak. It is named for the top-heavy boulder that makes up its far wall. Hugh Morton, the renowned photographer and nature conservationist who owned and developed Grandfather Mountain, invited his good friend Charles Kuralt to stay at his cabin, where he wrote a good portion of his book, Charles Kuralt's America. Here is your chance to have the cabin for a 2-night stay and the mountain to yourselves. The cabin is 1 room plus a bathroom. It includes 2 twin beds, fireplace, kitchenette, and dining table. This package includes free passes to Grandfather Mountain. As an added bonus, one of the park's naturalists will give you a personal guided tour of the park's 6 native wildlife habitats. This package must be used by December 31st, 2021, and is subject to availability. Our last featured auction package is a customized guided four-wheel drive tour of Jocassee Gorges. Enjoy a day touring the back roads of southwestern Transylvania County with your guide, Tori Nergert, Conserving Carolina's Conservation Easement Manager. Your group of 4 will embark from the Gorges State Park Visitor Center and head into the Jocassee Gorges, which was named one of the last 100 most wild and beautiful places by National Geographic. See the endangered Oconee bells and other flora and fauna in the Toxaway Gamelands, stopping at the wild and scenic Horsepasture River for some fly fishing, picnicking, photography, or swimming. Your guide, Tori, will interpret the special ecology and natural history of the area. A four-wheel drive vehicle and driver will be provided by Conserving Carolina. Consult with Tori before the trip about other activities you would like to do along the tour. The winner must contact Tori to plan the outing by September 1st, 2021. I hope these auction packages sound as fabulous to you as they do to me. Don't forget to place your bid by midnight, August 30th. Now, let's hear from one of Conserving Carolina's loyal supporters, Jason DeCristofaro.
Hi, my name's Randy Hunter with Hunter Subaru. I'd just like to tell you why we support Conserving Carolina. Number one, conservation. Our Subaru brand and what we stand for in Western North Carolina, we wouldn't have it if it wouldn't be for conservation and groups like Conserving Carolina, first and foremost. Partnership and stewardship. We partner with great groups like Conserving Carolina so we can enjoy these great outdoors of beautiful Western North Carolina. And number two, stewardship. We have to give back to the community. And stewardship, more than giving back, is taking care of the community and trails around us. We have mountains, we have parks, we have a lot of things to enjoy, and the state you're at its best being in Western North Carolina. So with Hunter Subaru, we're glad to support Conserving Carolina and their big event coming up August 25th. Thank you very much.
We are so grateful for Hunter Subaru and Beverly Hanks, our major sponsors of this evening. They give us the big bucks, and we can't do our work without the big bucks. But you know who else we can't do our work without? Our volunteers.
We're part of the Conserving Carolina Rock Crusher crew, which basically is a crew that we work hard every Wednesday for a full day of working on trails, building and sustaining the trails, and some of it is actually crushing rocks because we're so far into the wilderness that we can't bring a truckload in, and we crush rocks to use in trail building and sustaining of the trails. That's the name.
So there are about 10 or 12 of us that meet every Wednesday, and we really enjoy the camaraderie with people who value nature as well. And we do some incredible things that you wouldn't imagine people with just little hand tools can do.
When we first came from Chicagoland as retired teachers, we came to Hendersonville and said, okay, we're ready to hike. Well, you just don't pull off the side of the road and start hiking. So somebody said, check out what was at the time Carolina Mountain Land Conservancy. They have a hiking challenge, and it's still, Conserving Carolina has that hiking challenge. In fact, we're on the 5th level right now, and it tells exactly where the trailheads are. It describes the hike, turns and all of that. So we started doing that, and as we got involved with the trails and were amazed at these, we realized that these trails just did not happen by themselves. And we said, we want to make a difference. We want to have a part of this in sustaining these trails, but also we got involved in building. And one of our greatest legacies we have is Weed Patch Mountain Trail, which is awesome and has been a national award winner. Mm-hmm.
We believe in the quote, we do not inherit this earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. So we feel it's a responsibility that we have to preserve these places for future generations.
One of the big joys of living in this area is look around. I mean, constantly look around, and it's physical exercise. But it's far more than physical exercise. It's mental health. We are able to feel much better after a day of experience in the wilderness. But I also, as did Henry David Thoreau, capitalize nature because it's spiritual also. It changes who we are when we spend time in the world of nature.
Conserving Carolina is spearheading an ambitious vision to create a 130-mile trail network in the Hickory Nut Gorge. 32 miles of trail are already open and new sections are underway. Hickory Nut Gorge State Trail will expand recreational access for hikers, mountain bikers, and rock and ice climbers, linking Henderson, Rutherford, and Buncombe counties. We have helped create the Cane Creek and Vaughn Creek Greenways, segments of the Ocklawaha Greenway, and are pursuing creation of the proposed 18-mile rail-to-trail Acosta Trail Greenway connecting Hendersonville and Brevard. A 10-year project, Conserving Carolina and our partners, the Conservation Fund and North Carolina Forest Service, protected more than 6,700 acres of what is now Headwaters State Forest in Transylvania County. Headwaters State Forest hosts the origins of the East Fork of the French Broad River. 8 miles of the long-distance Foothills Trail traverse the southern boundary of Headwaters State Forest. It crosses over Sassafras Mountain, the highest point in South Carolina, located on the North Carolina-South Carolina state line. An observation tower at the summit permits a 360-degree view of the forever protected Headwaters State Forest.
Marissa Bauman. This is my husband, Randy Wetzel, my son, Zach, and daughter, Estella. We live in Fairview, North Carolina, in Buncombe County, and we chose to live here. We started writing our story here many, many years ago. I've been here almost 21 years, and you know, the beauty of the mountains, the biodiversity of the flora and fauna, the recreational opportunities, clean water, 4 seasons, all these amazing things that we enjoy here have kept us here, and we've grown to love this place and wanted to protect it as well. We first met Conserving Carolina by hiking trails in this area and spent many, many happy weekends and hours enjoying and exploring this area, and felt, I don't know, it was just a very organic way to get to know the organization.
We are very fortunate to have Conserving Carolina here in our area that has a mission to preserve our mountains and shares the values that we have, because no one person can make the impact that an organization like this can.
Because of our shared values with Conserving Carolina, we wanted to commit personal resources to their future work, and we really believe in the cause. We think it's great that they are members of our community and they're working in our community, and it's all right here, and what better place to do the work. So if you care about the environment and the wild spaces here like we do, we encourage you to consider directing some of your resources to the work that Conserving Carolina does. We're very proud to be a part of it.
We love Conserving Carolina.
Hi, I'm Communications Director Rose Lane, and it is my honor to introduce our keynote speakers, who we are thrilled to have with us because nobody can inspire like Audrey and Frank Peterman. Audrey and Frank are powerful advocates for increasing diversity in our public lands nationally and even internationally. If you're lucky, you might have heard them speak 2 years ago at UNC Asheville, or even join their tour of the Carl Sandburg home. When they were here, they made such an impact that some members of our local community immediately founded a new nature group for people of color called Pathways to Parks, and it's still going strong. Audrey and Frank are the authors of 3 books about conservation and public lands. Frank is the former Southeast Regional Director of the Wilderness Society and a former board member of Duke University's Nicholas School of Environment. Audrey has served on the boards of the National Parks Conservation Association and the Public Lands Alliance. They are also the founders of the Diverse Environmental Leaders Speakers Bureau. I should say that there are some technical difficulties when it comes to joining us from their home in Jamaica in the middle of a pandemic, and it's possible there might be some background noise, but it's well worth it. Enjoy.
Hello, Conserving Carolina. It's Audrey and Frank. We feel so elated to be invited to join you today as you're celebrating. We're so appreciative. And we're right now in Jamaica from our little cottage in our living room, so you can see all the accoutrements on our walls. We hope you enjoy them as much as we do.
Hello, and thank you for allowing us to help experience your wonderful celebration.
Yes. Yes, and I want to make special mention of Kieran and Rose and everyone on your team, all your volunteers, all your staff, and all your board, because we recognize that conservation is not a one-person thing. For it to be useful and successful, it requires that there are a lot of people on board. So we want to give thanks to everyone who is participating to make Conserving Carolina what it is. And it is so interesting that we're all doing this from a distance in this time of coronavirus, and we really pray and hope that you have not been personally affected by it. And indeed, we're praying for all the world, because the sooner we come out of this, the better for everyone.
In 1995, my wife and I embarked on a life-altering journey. We traveled 12,500 miles around America, from the Atlantic to the Pacific and all the points in between. We visited 15 national parks and I don't know how many state parks, and we visited 40 states. And I tell you, it was life-altering because the beauty we saw in the canyon, the rivers, the lakes, the mountains, the wildlife was unbelievable. We have such a wonderful country and such a wonderful outdoor here in this country. And my kudos to you for joining in the effort to save and protect these places for our progeny. There is no greater calling than to help protect nature from the ravages of people who would see only board feet of lumber in our wonderful forest. During our travels around the country to the national park, I've begun to become a little concerned that I did not see people such as ourselves. Not concerned out of any fear from any other group, but simply we did not see African Americans out there. And again, this is 1995. So on our way back across the country, rather than deciding to complain about it, we decided to do something about it. We decided that we had to make certain that Americans of color understand what a rich heritage they have. And if no other reason I often say is that come April the 15th, you pay for these places whether you visit them or not. So you don't want to be an absentee landlord. You need to go and see what your dollars provide for you. But above that, you need to understand that so much of our history is out in the forest and in the national park and in our outdoors. And to protect that history, you need to be part of the movement. I learned through my work with the Wilderness Society of the great core of people who devote so much of their time, such as yourselves, to protecting these spaces and improving them and maintaining them for generations to come. Kudos to you for that. It is an untold story, I think, that needs to be broadcast throughout this nation. And thank you also for being so inclusive in your effort. We would not have had this contact with you had you not taken the initiative to see that we need to improve and improve our inclusivity of all citizens, because it is one of the most important things you can do, not to become too sanguine about it, but if we do not have people who understand, appreciate, and love these places, then we will not have people who are willing to pay to protect them. So it is a very practical matter, along with the life-altering experience of these places. Practically, we need to make sure that we have people who will stand up and support these places. And through my work with the Wilderness Society, I was brought into the wonderful Carolinas. I spent much time in North Carolina, South Carolina, and throughout the Southeast. And working, I even did some work for the society in terms of the management plan of the Pisgah, going through scoping and all of the wonderful things. I had no idea how much it took to protect and to enlarge these places.
Wow. Yes, and so as Frank described the beauty and wonder that we saw around the country driving from coast to coast, we're happy to say that we can attest to the fact that the Carolinas represent a microcosm of that great macrocosm. So the work that you are doing is fundamental, elementary, and very necessary. Even though it's place-based, it will have reverberating effect for conservation across the nation. And who can ever forget the opportunity we had to go into the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and watch the synchronous fireflies? Who can ever forget seeing our first black bear as we were driving along the Blue Ridge Parkway? But we really want to emphasize that now the focus is shifting, not away from conservation, but is shifting to include the human element, the social dynamics. And Conserving Carolina has been way out front with that. because as early as 2018, you were part of Environment for Everyone that invited us to come up and speak to people at the University of North Carolina in Asheville. And as part of that experience, we had the wonderful opportunity to go to the Sandberg, the Carl Sandburg home. Wow, so much has evolved as a result of that. First of all, we are aware now that the Carolinas have a great tradition of leadership in the human sphere, because Carl Sandburg's home is in the National Park Service, in the National Park System rather, as a result of his focus on equality and justice and ending child labor. You know, we tend to forget that that was an issue in America at the turn of the 20th century. But Carl Sandburg devoted his life to seeking equal pay for African Americans, and really the equality and justice that is one of our foundational promises in this country. And that has yet to be realized. So the upheaval that is currently going on in this country provides us an opportunity to confront those injustices and inequality that various members of the public and in the conservation sphere have been challenging for years. And still we see how intransigent they remain. So now we have an opportunity to really focus on what can we and what must we do to make sure that those inequalities are unearthed, exposed, and rectified. And we can only say a big kudos and thank you to the Asheville City Council, which has already taken very forward-leaning steps towards that. And you might say, why are you talking about such things as social justice and equity? Well, you might not say that actually, because you have demonstrated with your work that you are aware of that. But we just want to emphasize that this is the time when we have the opportunity to change things. You have a great tradition of leadership. In looking at the establishment of the Appalachian Trail, how delighted were we to find that Benton McKay, when he conceptualized and conceived of the trail, he was thinking not only of protecting land, but he was thinking of protecting land and creating the trail so that people who live in urban areas could have an opportunity to enjoy and relish in their spare time and not just their work life. So between Benton McKay and Carl Sandburg, you have two very illuminating leaders. But I do want to continue to say that as a result of that great experience at the Sandburg home, where we met Kieran and reconnected with Rose and other members of Conserving Carolina, we also met for the first time two wonderful ladies, Tanya Cumming and Florence Mayberry. And in the intervening time, in under 2 years, they succeeded and were so inspired that they formed Pathways to Parks, which is spearheading outings and exposure for urban populations into the great outdoors. And I know that they're working with several conservation organizations, including potentially Conserving Carolina. And also I have to tell you that one of the things that we were chagrined by when we went to the Sandburg home was that there was very little representation of the enslaved people who had kept that home. And so now, how wonderful it is to find that Flo's son, Tony Robles, who is a noted poet in America, is now the author in residence, the writer in residence at the Sandburg House. And he has determined to look out, to seek out the descendants of those enslaved people and to connect them with the home and to connect them with the history of the place. So I'm thinking that's a wonderful opportunity for Conserving Carolina to even build your demographic footprint bigger. It's about the people now.
You know, as I think about it, it is no wonder I ended up at this point in my life involved in the environment and involved in protecting wild places. I think I'm very fortunate. I sort of grew up in an ethic of protecting wild places. I learned very early on. I fell in love with the outdoors. As a toddler, following my grandfather up and down the sloughs and to the creeks and the springs in southeast Alabama, hunting and fishing with my father and my uncle. And so I just sort of grew up loving these places and loving outdoors. And as life took its course, it brought me to where I am today. And even my father, who managed orange groves in southeast Florida, had a ethic about how they go about that management. He would not take on a grove if the owner did not agree, that he would leave a portion of the grove unharvested, that he would leave it there for the wild animals. And so I never had any doubt about the importance of nature and the powers of nature to cure, the powers of nature to calm, the power of nature to return us to a place of comfort. And so this is one reason it is so important that you keep doing the work that you're doing. And we can do everything we can to help you in that work, because we know that people need nature, and what you're providing for us is excellent in terms of value. I often like to say, especially in the few miles that I've been on the Appalachian Trail, that every trail has its tale, and every rock is a solid with its history. So let's preserve these places for our progeny.
Yes, and I'm so happy to be able to tell you that, when we started in 1995 in this work, there was maybe a handful of people who were outdoor activists of color. And now we have come 180 degrees. I have 100 new people on my Facebook page in any given month. And they're not just individuals, but they're leaders of groups and organizations that are really eager to enable their fellow citizens to have the exposure and the experience of being in the outdoors and feeling that they are part of this great public lands domain. And I cannot tell you the feeling of delight and pleasure that we take. Well, you know it because you experience it when you get a piece of land protected that you've been striving towards. You know it when we got the Great American Outdoors Act recently passed. You know the feeling of joy and contentment. And I am here to say to you unequivocally today, there are hundreds of thousands of people just like us around the country who are eager to have that feeling, who are eager to support nature and to know that they are part of something so strong, so forever, and so real. So let's get busy engaging them.
And let me say this to you. When you become doubtful, when you're feeling a little down that things are not going quite as they should, let me remind you, you are charged with doing the work.
Yes.
You are not charged with the results. Nature, God, the environment, the universe will dictate the result. But just do the work.
Yes.
And be happy in the work that you're doing. Go out somewhere and hug a tree.
Yes, or hug your spouse. So, Conserving Carolina, we hope that you have the most productive, the most satisfying, the most inspiring event ever, even though we can't be together. But we are one mind and we are dedicated to one purpose, conserving a quality of the environment that can continue to support human life and that we can hand over to our successors, in our case, our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. This beautiful country that we are privileged to call ourselves citizens. And thank you so much for all you continue to do.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who participated in our 2020 Trip of Your Choice raffle. Funds from the trip raffle make projects like the ones you've heard about this evening into a reality. Without further ado, let's see who the lucky winner is. Oh my, oh my. This is so exciting, but you're going to have to go to the chat box on your screen to see who the winner is. Congratulations. And now we will draw the winner of a special trip raffle just for staff members. This special drawing is made possible thanks to a generous donor who believes that supporting the staff of Conserving Carolina is just as important as supporting the many projects they work on so hard. The staff member who wins this drawing will be allotted $2,000 to be used to take a nature-oriented trip of their choice. And now let's see who the lucky winner is. The winner is Kristen Lee. Kristen is the AmeriCorps Project Conserve Program Coordinator at Conserving Carolina. Congratulations, Kristen. Thank you to our generous donor for supporting our staff in this exciting and unique way. And now, for a few final words from Development Director Lynn Killian.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you go away with a little more knowledge about Conserving Carolina and with the inspiration and the will to support our work in any way you can. Thank you and good night.